Hey Compass Online, happy Mother's Day. We're so glad that you've joined us to celebrate the moms and mother figures in our lives and to worship our God together today. My name is Rachel and I'm one of the pastors here at the Compass Church, where our mission is helping people find and follow God. If you're new or if you've been watching for a while but haven't connected yet, take a minute to fill out a connection card. Just scan the QR code you see on your screen and it'll take you right to our app. There's even a spot to share prayer requests. We would love to be praying for you this week. We're about to launch into a new series about the life of Samuel, an Old Testament prophet who led the nation of Israel during a time of great tumult and transition. We're going to be learning from his story how to hear God's voice leading us and guiding us, even in the chaos of our busy, crazy lives. I myself am the mom of two wonderful kids, Wesley and Ella, and I love being a mom. Now don't get me wrong, today being a mom is one of the best parts of my life. But when I first started the motherhood journey, it was one of the hardest things that I've ever done. I actually became a mom on the younger side before most of my friends, and to be honest, that was pretty lonely. My life changed pretty drastically from my friends' lives, as I found my days all of a sudden full of diapers and laundry and an adorable but colicky baby. It was also harder to find time to connect with God during those hectic years. I didn't have hours to spend in Bible study, and what little time I did have, I was exhausted, both physically and mentally. But God met me where I was at in that time, and I learned to find peace in just sitting in his presence while I rocked my baby to sleep. God kept reminding me of Psalm 131:2 that says, "But I have calmed and quieted myself. I am like a weaned child with its mother. Like a weaned child, I am content." You know, at first that verse confused me. Why focus so much on a weaned child, not one that was still breastfeeding, who would be much more dependent on its mother? But I realized that while a breastfed child may be just coming to their mother to eat, a weaned child is there simply to be in her presence. So I learned that I don't always need to get something from God, and my time with him doesn't always have to be productive. Sometimes it's enough just to be in God's presence and soak in his goodness and love. I don't know where you're at today, friend, but I do know that wherever you are, God can meet you right there. You may be in a season where you don't have a lot of time or energy, and that may even be why you joined us online today. But you made an intentional choice to spend this time with God. So let's make the most of it. Take a moment to set aside any distractions, and let's press into God's presence as we worship him together in singing.
This bad thought And I want to wish a huge happy Mother's Day to all of the moms. I'm thinking of all the moms at all the campuses of the Compass Church. Happy Mother's Day, moms. We want you to know that you are loved and appreciated. And on this day, we want to honor you. And I want to honor you by preaching a Mother's Day sermon. Now, it's got application to non-moms as well, but let's dive in, shall we? And today, I come to you from the house of a mother named Lydia Cutler. Now, Lydia was born 210 years ago, and her house is 190 years old, one of the oldest houses around. And we own it. We, the Compass Church, we own this beauty. Oh, lucky us, huh? Well, as it turns out, this house sits on the piece of property we bought in Plainfield for our future Three Rivers campus to move to this location. It's a fantastic location, right on the corner of Route 59 and Renwick. And boy, this historic house sits right on the corner. Now, part of the whole arrangement we've worked out with the village is that we will donate this house to the village. Somehow they're going to pick it up and move it to city-owned land, and then they're going to restore it so that it can be enjoyed by all Plainfield people who love history and want to see one of the oldest homes. Lydia Cutler. She's got an amazing story. Can I share it with you? Lydia was born and raised in a town called Delaware in the state of Ohio, actually right in the middle of Ohio. And back then, Delaware was a charming town of 2,000 people. And it was when Lydia was in her early 20s that she was strolling about town and she bumped into a childhood friend named Robert. And Robert was carrying his little son of 1 year old named Theodore. And it was a fateful conversation. You know, Robert possibly let Lydia hold the baby boy. And Lydia, both delighted to see the child, also felt heavy in heart to see Robert, because Robert had gone through a great tragedy and everyone in town knew about it. He had married shortly after graduating from high school and had little Theodore. And then Robert's wife died. She got sick and passed away. And so now this 23-year-old guy is a widower and a single father. Well, as they conversed, Robert sprung a question on her that she did not see coming. Robert said, "Hey, Lydia, interested in being my wife and Theodore's mom?" She would have been like, "Oh, you're funny." He goes, "I ain't kidding." Robert went on to explain that he was leaving Delaware because he had purchased 20 acres of land in Illinois with the vision of turning it into a farm. And he says, "I got to get out of here. I'm moving to that land." And he said, "Unfortunately, there's hardly anybody who lives in that frontier land yet. And so my prospects of finding a wife and a mom for Theodore are next to nil out there. And so I got to find this boy a mom before I leave. What do you think, Lydia? Want to be Theodore's mom?" She must have asked questions, don't you think? I can imagine her bombarding him with questions like 20 acres of land in Illinois. Do you have a house? And he would have said, "As a matter of fact, it's got a house on the land." What kind of house? Log cabin. This house was originally a log cabin, and then Robert expanded it to what we see today. But he would have had to say it's a log cabin. She would have said, "How many rooms?" "One." she was like, "1 room log cabin." He's up, "But I'm gonna make it into a frame house eventually that'll be so nice." He had a vision. She must have asked, are there others there? Are there neighbors at all? Yeah. There are 10 families that live in a vicinity called Plainfield. And she might have asked, "Can I see my neighbors?" "No." "Are there roads to my neighbors?" "No, there are walking paths." "Are there schools for Theodore?" "Not yet." "Are there stores to shop in?" Maybe Robert said, well, some of the houses sell things from their homes. She's like, oh, you're kidding me. This is unbelievable. She might have asked, are there mosquitoes? Yes, billions of them. Do people get swamp fever? Yes, you could get swamp fever. The prospect of being a pioneer in this area was very frightening. And yet, Lydia said, I'm in. Let's do it. It must have been that baby boy, don't you think, won her heart over. Well, Robert married Lydia, and with little baby Theodore, they got into a wagon, horse-drawn wagon, and went west all the way here, where they started to expand their family. They had 2 daughters, one named Belle and the other Mary. And Lydia poured her heart and soul into Theodore as if he were her own biological child, but also her daughters. Eventually, she had 12 grandkids. She was a devoted, courageous mom. Something about moms. They've got to have devotion. They've got to have courage. It's a high calling and a challenging one at that. And moms throughout the centuries in this area and beyond, you moms are some of the greatest heroes in our life story. You just have the beauty of God's love and devotion expressed through you. And so thank you, moms. Actually, in this sermon, we're going to study another mom, this one named Hannah. Hannah was the mom of Samuel. This series we're starting today is called Samuel, Hearing God in the Chaos. Samuel, we're going to see, he was amazing because, in part, he came from an amazing mom. This Hannah is going to show us the way. Again, not only for moms, but for all of us, we're going to see Hannah be an example that we should follow. So are you ready? You want to learn about parenting or relating to young people? Yeah, we're going to learn together from the Word of God and from the example of Samuel's mom named Hannah. All right, my online friends, you ready to dive into the story of Samuel? Here we go. 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 1. It says, there was a man named Elkanah who had 2 wives, Hannah and Peninnah. Now, Peninnah had children, but Hannah did not. You know, probably what arose this polygamy situation was that Elkanah had married Hannah. That was the love of his life, but Hannah was barren. She was unable to have children. And so this Elkanah exercised a common cultural practice. If your first wife can't bear you children, marry a second, and hopefully that works out. Again, outside of the will of God, the Lord made it clear back in Genesis that God created one man and one woman, not polygamy. That was the culture's idea, not God's. And this poor Hannah who is barren, oh my, the pain associated with barrenness. Many of us have gone through a season of inability to have a child. Some are still in that season presently. And I just want to acknowledge that pain is immense. It was immense for Hannah. Verse 3, each year Elkanah would travel to Shiloh to worship the Lord at the tabernacle. Shiloh, it's a city north of Jerusalem that was the capital of Israel during the period of the Judges, 300 years. Shiloh was this capital city from the time of Joshua and the conquest all the way up to the present and into the monarchy as it first gets started. Shiloh. And the tabernacle, just a note about that. We know that was built back in the days of Moses. It was a tent, a portable worship center. But there's evidence that in the 300 years in Shiloh, they contributed to the tent and made it semi-permanent. We're going to read later about Samuel opening the doors of the tabernacle. Well, doors. We're also going to see the tabernacle referred to as a temple at times. And archaeology, as they have dug in Shiloh, they have come to the foundation of a building dating to this time that is the dimensions of the tabernacle. So it seems that the old tent was incorporated, but there was around it and in it some stone walls that made the structure a little more building-like. All right, so that's where they've come to do their annual worship. Verse 3, the priests at the time were the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas. Friends, this is the first mention of trouble here. Eli, he was a great and godly priest, but both of his sons were spiritual disasters. And so the whole nation of Israel is at a point of crisis because, the two guys who are heirs to become, the priests in the capital city are not godly. And this just contributes to an overall desperate time in Israel's history. But God's intervening, isn't he? Yeah, let's continue. Verse 8. Why are you crying, Hannah? This is the husband speaking to his wife, grieving that she has no children. Why are you crying, Hannah? Elkanah would ask. Why be downhearted just because you have no children? You have me. Isn't that better than having 10 sons? Note to self, husbands, if your wife is grieving, the inability to have kids, if you think, hey, you got me, I doubt it worked then, and I'll tell you, it doesn't work today. Yeah, bad call. Verse 10, Hannah was in deep anguish. This is at the tabernacle in Shiloh. She's praying. Hannah was in deep anguish, crying bitterly as she prayed to the Lord. And she made this vow to God. She said, "O Lord, if you will look upon my sorrow and answer my prayer and give me a son, then I will give him back to you." Interesting. I always looked at this as just Hannah saying, I'm going to work a deal with God. I'll say, hey, tell you what, if you give me a child, I think there's some of that. But I also have come to realize that this idea of giving back her son is born in the mind of God. This is God's plan. God's speaking to Hannah in this prayer. God sees the disaster of Hophni and Phinehas, and he's like, I need a son of the high priest that will be godly. And God figured out a way to get, if you will, an adopted son into Eli's family. And so he prompted Hannah and said, Hannah, if I give you a child, will you give him back to my tabernacle? And sensing this idea, she says, yes, I will, Lord. If you'll give me a child, I'll give him back. Let's go to the next verse, verse 12. As she was praying to the Lord, Eli the priest watched her. And seeing her lips moving, but hearing no sound, he thought she had been drinking. Must you come here drunk, he demanded. She was really passionate in her prayer, apparently with greater passion than anybody Eli had seen pray like that before. And all this intense emotion, yet she was talking to the Lord, so she wasn't saying anything out loud. He assumed she had been drinking. Verse 15, she replied, I haven't been drinking, but I am very discouraged. And I was pouring out my heart to the Lord. I love that phrase, pouring out my heart. Do you know that's where we get that phrase? Even today, we'll say that, hey, he poured out his heart to her or whoever. And that comes, the first time that is ever recorded is here with the story of Hannah. And so what does it mean to pour out your heart to the Lord? Well, it means that you pray with great authenticity and great passion. And friends, I have a point that I want to draw from this for our guidance. It's this: take your parenting pain to the Lord. Another way to say it, pour out your heart. We have parenting pain, whether it be infertility like Hannah, or whether it be the trials of raising little kids, or whether it be the drama of older kids. Parenting pain is real. And maybe Mother's Day just makes it a little more sensitive. Do what Hannah did. God says, talk to me, please. I long for you to process your pain with me in prayer. And so, like Hannah, we should go to God and just be courageously honest with him about our frustration, our struggle, our disappointment. God's the best one to process our pain with. And look, it worked for Hannah. Verse 17, Eli, learning that she's not drunk, but instead praying, Eli said, oh, go in peace. May God grant the request you have asked of him. He doesn't even know what specifically she was asking for, but he said, whatever it is, may God grant it. And look at verse 18. Oh, thank you, sir, Hannah exclaimed. And then she began to eat. She was so distraught she had not been eating. And she was no longer sad. Even though she doesn't know whether or not the prayer will be answered, the priest had given a blessing. He had essentially said his prayer, may the Lord grant you what you've been asking. And pouring out her heart to God and getting the encouraging prayer from the priest, she just is in a better place. Still doesn't have kids, but having brought her need to the Lord, God has brought a comfort. Same can happen to us. We can have one of these pouring out our heart prayers to the Lord, and he reminds us of his love for us. He wraps his presence around us like a warm hug. And many of us, and I pray all of us, will grow to know what it's like to be comforted by God in the midst of our parenting pain. So again, take your parenting pain to the Lord. Let's press on. Verse 19. The Lord remembered her plea, her prayer, and in due time, she, Hannah, gave birth to a son. After an extended season of infertility, the Lord answered her prayer, gave her a son. Verse 20, Hannah named him Samuel, for she said, I asked the Lord for him. Turns out that the name Samuel means asked of God, if you will. His name means, this is what I prayed for. I love this because Hannah named him in a way that helps us realize she fully understood that her body had not overcome infertility. She hadn't accomplished this pregnancy on her own doing. This was a God thing, a gift from God. In fact, Psalm 127 verse 3 says, children are a gift from the Lord. Whether an answer to prayer in the struggle of infertility or, anytime a child comes, they're always a God thing. And we need to remember that. In fact, let's put that down as a point of application. Recognize each child is a gift from God. It's easy to remember that on the days when they're so cute and when they're so good. But even on the days when they're driving you crazy, kids are a gift from God. Even disobedient kids are a gift from God. And to just be reminded of that always. This kid is a gift straight from you, Lord. They are precious. And I want to savor every interaction with my kids. I'll always view them, whether they're little or they're big and old. They're a gift from God. Every person precious, made by God in his image. May we remember that of all kids, whether they be ours or nieces and nephews or just like kids to us. They're gifts. All right, verse 24. When the child was weaned, back then they would breastfeed a child for like 2 to 3 years. And so Hannah kept her baby Samuel during this season of weaning. But when the child was weaned, Hannah took him to the tabernacle in Shiloh again. And look at what she says to Eli the priest there, verse 26. She says, I'm the woman who stood here several years ago praying to the Lord. I asked the Lord to give me this boy, and he has granted my request. And now I am giving him to the Lord. This is fascinating. This kid who's like 3 years old, she's leaving him at the tabernacle with this Eli. She's saying, in a sense, I want you to be his legal guardian, almost an adoptive father, because I made an arrangement with God that if he blessed me, I would give the child to God. This was rare. It's not like everybody was dropping off their kids at Eli's door saying, hey, you got another one? No. This was a special thing where God was meeting the need. What was the need? Israel needed Eli to have a godly son, and the first two were not. And so the Lord is doing a unique thing. But though unique, there is a sense in which we all need to give our children to the Lord. Not drop them off at church permanently, but we need to say, this child is not my child so much as he or she is your child, Lord. Your child. In fact, I want to use the phrase, dedicate your child to the Lord. We actually celebrate child dedication in our church, by the way. You can take advantage of that. Maybe you've seen it before. It's when a child is young, maybe just a baby, and the parents get up and they just say, hey, I'm formally recognizing that this child that God has given me, I'm giving back to God. It's his child. And it's a beautiful truth. You know, the Lord owns everything. And so we're really acknowledging that which is true, and that is that it's not our child. Sometimes we get possessive and we say, my child, my house, my life. And the right biblical posture is to say, Lord, it's all yours. This kid in my house is your kid. I give him to you. Now I'll raise your kid, Lord, with great honor and delight. But he's yours. And this also acknowledges that, Lord, as he's yours, whatever you want to be true of this child. In the case of Hannah, she had learned that Samuel was to be raised in the house of the priest to serve as a priest. And she was giving up any expectations she had for the child and said, your plan be done, Lord. Your kid, your plan. Friends, this is so powerful. When we let go of our expectations of our child's future and really enjoy the confidence that God has plans, it can be a beautiful thing. I remember in Psalm 139, it says, you saw me before I was born, and you scheduled each day of my life before I even began to breathe. I love that psalm. It just reminds us about our own lives, that when we were in utero, God had plans for us. But it reminds us that God has the same for our kids. He has plans for our children. That doesn't mean our kids don't have free will. No, somehow God incorporates his knowledge of future decisions, even bad decisions. And he develops a plan even around the bad decisions that we make. And so when we look at our kid, we can either fight to get the kid to do what we want, or we can surrender and say, Lord, I dedicate this child to you. Whatever you want with them, your will be done. That's surrender. Just as Hannah surrendered Samuel, so we must just say, Lord, thank you for the privilege of raising this child. He or she is yours. Your will be done. Let's move on. Verse 11. Elkanah and his family returned home to Ramah without Samuel. And the boy served the Lord by assisting Eli the priest. Can't you imagine it? Hear that goodbye. Oh, you know, I've adopted 2 kids, and I've seen the pain that an adoptive mother endures as she courageously does what she believes is needed and best for the child, and that's to give up. And in this moment, you can bet as Elkanah and Hannah walked away, leaving their 3-year-old, the pain, the sorrow, the tears must have been immense. But this was a chance to trust the Lord. You know that. In fact, let's put that down. Let's say, trust the Lord with your child. We leave them in God's hand. When we dedicate them, we're saying, Lord, they're your child, it's your plan. But then we say, I'm trusting with you with that kid. I know you love them even more than I do, Lord. I know that your presence is with them even when I'm not. And one of the great necessities of any parent is to learn to trust the Lord with their child. On those nights when your kid is out late and you're like, oh boy, I hope they're safe. That's when we turn to God in prayer and say, I trust you. I know that you, again, love the child more than I do, are capable of protecting the child more than I am. And so I'm going to rest trusting of your involvement in their lives. And that's what Hannah and Elkanah had to do as they walked away. They were entrusting him to Eli, but more they were entrusting him to the Lord. And then I want to flip real quickly also here to 1 Samuel 2:19. Look what happens here. Each year his mother made a coat for Samuel and brought it to him when she came with her husband for the annual sacrifice. And then before they returned home, Eli would bless Elkanah and his wife Hannah. So they continued their one-year trips to Shiloh, to the tabernacle. And when they did this, Mom would bring a little coat, a little bigger than the year before because she knew Samuel was growing. But she could make a coat and give as a gift. I think there's an important lesson here. I'm gonna phrase it this way. Do your part to bless your child. Do your part. Do what you can. You know, we've already said that the child belongs to God and that we're trusting in him, but that doesn't mean we're inactive. We know we can't force a child to become who we want them to become, but we can bless them with doing our part. Lord, you're in charge, but I'm here to help in whatever I can do. And in Hannah's case, it wasn't much. She could pray, and she could bring a gift of a coat once a year. But that was all the contact she had with Samuel. And so she did what she could do. And so should we. We need to say, Lord, I'm going to do my best. My best is not enough. You know, a coat once a year is not enough. But God can use our best as we contribute wisdom, resources, guidance, spiritual training. We're like, Lord, I know I can't force a kid to become who I want or who you want him to be, but I'll do my best and just trust that you'll do the rest. And that's kind of how it is. Do your best. Do your part. Make the coat and pray that God uses it to bless your child. Shall we take a look at those three once again? Remember, the first is take your parenting pain to the Lord. The second, recognize each child as a gift from God. The third, dedicate your child to the Lord. The fourth, trust the Lord with your child. And then the fifth, do your part to bless your child. Friends, it's a brilliant example of courageous and faith-filled parenting in a very unique way. You know, the uniqueness of Hannah's story makes me think of a birthday celebration I just was a part of last week. We have a member of our church, Henry Carlson, who just celebrated 100 years. Can you believe that? And Henry and I have been friends now for a time, and I'm mesmerized by his story. In fact, I want to tell you his story from his mother's perspective. His mom, Thora Carlson. Yeah, here's what happened. So Thora and her husband, they moved from Chicago back to Norway. They were Norwegians who had immigrated, but they thought, we miss the homeland. And so they went back to Norway. And they were living there in Norway, and after a few years, they were like, we like Chicago better. I could have told them that. Anyways, so they were ready to move back to Chicago, but Henry was the eldest of 4 boys. And Henry said, Mom, it's the middle of the school year. You can't do this to me. Henry was 13 years old at the time. And Henry said, Mom, there's only 4 months left of the school year. Can I stay with Aunt and Uncle here in Norway? You and Dad and the younger 3 brothers go back to Chicago. And as soon as school is done, Aunt and Uncle will get me on the boat, and you'll pick me up in New York, and I'll come then. And she was agonizing in being separated from her son for 4 months. But in the end, out of a generous spirit, she said, all right, Henry, you can stay for the last 4 months in Norway. Little did she know, what was supposed to be a 4-month separation became a 10-year separation. No sooner had Thora, her husband, and the younger boys sailed back to the United States when World War II broke out, and suddenly transatlantic transportation, like going back to Chicago, was just shut down because of the war. And so here, poor Thora back in Chicago is like, no, my boy can't come home to me. And then to make matters worse, she found out that the Nazis had invaded, conquered, now occupied Norway. And she knew that her son was living under this evil regime. And then to make matters even worse, she then later discovered that her boy, Henry, as a teenager, had been arrested by the Nazis and put in a Nazi prisoner of war camp. And she can do nothing. What can she do? She can pray, which she did. She can read her Bible. Henry says, he goes, my mom was such a godly woman. She would study the Bible and cling to the promises of God. She would write letters of encouragement to Henry, but this is all she could do. And she was separated from her boy for 10 years. Finally, after the war was over, after Henry had been released and finished school and got some training and earned a little money, he was ready to come home, this time as a 23-year-old young man. And Henry was able to tell his Mom, being separated from you and the family was a disaster in one sense. But he said, the Lord used it to grow me, Mom. Your prayers were answered. And Henry had become a godly young man through that trial. Isn't that interesting? So much pain, so much loss, so much prayer, so much perseverance, and the grace of God winning the day, even in a difficult situation. And in the absence of Thora, her son had flourished by the grace of God. In the absence of Hannah, Samuel flourished by the grace of God. Can I show you? Verse 26, this is of chapter 2. It says, the boy Samuel grew taller, grew in favor with the Lord and with the people. He grew physically, he grew spiritually, and he grew relationally in his relationships with the people. And God blessed, and may he bless us in our efforts to have a parenting heart like Hannah, and trust the Lord to work in our kids, be they little, middle, or old. In fact, let's pray for that right now, shall we? God, I thank you so much for this incredible story of Hannah and Samuel. Lord, I thank you for her faith to trust you, to follow you. Would you help us implement the wise steps that she models for us? And God, for all moms and dads and everybody in between, would you bless us all with growth in our hearts as it relates to us relating to kids. We just want to experience parenting the way you intended. We pray for it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Surrendered again. Freely I lay down my everything. This is my honor, the gift that I bring. There and set me ablaze. And I will be a living sacrifice, all my heart and soul to glorify. I offer nothing less than all my life for Jesus Every part of our hearts as a sacrifice. Oh, we give it all to you. I'll give you all of my worship. Fall, fire, come consume it. I'll give you all of my worship. Fall, fire, come consume it. I'll give you all of my worship. Fall, fire, come consume it. I'll give you all of my worship. Fall, fire, I will be a living sacrifice, all my heart and soul to glorify. I offer nothing less than all my life for Jesus Christ. I will be a living sacrifice, all my heart and soul to glorify. I offer nothing less than all my life for Jesus Christ. And I will be a living sacrifice, all my heart and soul to glorify. I offer nothing less than all my life for Jesus Christ.
Thanks for joining us today. I hope that you heard something that impacted or inspired you. We want to take a moment to thank you for your incredible generosity in supporting the mission of the Compass Church. Your giving is making a real difference as we help people find and follow God. If you feel led to give today or anytime, you can do so securely online on our website or our app. I hope you make plans to join us again next time right here at Compass Online.